Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're listening to this. We are recapping this week's episode of RHONY, and we are still out in the Hamptons. I just want to start by saying I actually really love this episode. We always talk about good balance. We had a lot of moments, emotional, funny. We had it all. I really liked this episode.
Well, and there was a prank involved, which we will get Abby. I want to add a new segment, and eventually we'll get production value where we'll have on the screen where Abby can rank all these different pranks, being the resident prank expert here at Real Moms of Bravo. But
I did like it. But
okay.
we'll wait till we get to that part. Okay, the women were terrible at tennis.
Very, very bad. As
But
someone who played tennis, and it's funny. Okay, so I played tennis in high school, which I feel like doesn't really even count anymore, but that's when I started. I play now as an adult. I take tennis lessons, so I play like semi regularly, probably more than most. And they were so bad, it hurt my tennis loving heart. However, you have a good point.
At least they weren't playing pickleball. I feel like we're on this big trope of like pickleball events for housewives. If you've been watching Housewives for a while, you know they go through like these like trends of events they have to do. We had the like murder mystery dinner that like swept every franchise. We've done a lot of pickleball. I'm very happy that like not that I have anything against pickleball, although I've always said I will not start playing pickleball until physically tennis is too much for me. So I am physically able and in good enough shape that I like playing tennis. So I stick with that. But I like the committed to tennis.
I do wonder when we'll eventually get more paddle, which we saw in Dubai, which it feels like the love child of tennis and pickleball because you have like a bigger racket. I saw it a lot over in Europe when I was there recently. So eventually that's going to become like the new pickleball when it trickles here to the States, which means if it's happening in Europe, it's probably going to be here like
6 months to a year. Yeah.
Yes, until now, before we start hearing more about paddle. But let's talk about Raquel.
Oh my gosh, that story so emotional. I mean, you can and it was I think it was interesting the people she was speaking to, given it was Uba and Brynn, and given the fact that, Brynn's father's not in her life, he abandoned her. We don't know a ton on Uba's relationship with her dad. But after hearing some of the things, like I know her and Chanel Ayan are cousins. Hearing some of the things Chanel Ayan went through as a child, and like we don't know for sure. Like Uba hasn't like spoken about all like hasn't confirmed that she had the same trauma or anything like that. But um, she doesn't speak about her dad often. So you do kind of like you wonder maybe what the dynamic might be there. And I just thought it was interesting that who Raquel was speaking to, but it was so sad. She talked about how basically her dad never wanted to be part of their lives. I'd be curious to know if she still speaks with her uncle because it sounds like the uncle actually has like had a good heart and a good head on his shoulders. Her mom basically reached out to the uncle and was like, "Your brother is abandoning his kids. That's not right." And they went a long time without speaking. And then finally, it sounds like the uncle broke through to the dad, invites the kids to Thanksgiving, and essentially gives them like a photo booth photo of them and says, like, this is it. You'll never see me again.
Heartbreaking.
I
I
could not
wanted to
imagine.
hug her inner child because stuff like that stays with you forever, right? Like the way she was talking about it and the way
Oh,
she
you could
opened up
tell.
about it
Yeah.
it was as if it happened yesterday. And I will say for a first time housewife, and we got a bit of this with Bronwyn, to me, I really appreciate Bronwyn, Raquel, like opening up in that way. Cause I would
Mhm.
imagine those are topics that are very difficult to talk about. And to me, it just adds a layer of authenticity to them as housewives as well. It's just like very layered. Like you have her opening up at the story, and then you have her in her like hopefully faux fur coat grilling and like looking like all gangster and stuff. So it's just I just love seeing the different layers of Raquel. I think she's just a very interesting housewife so far.
I think when emotional stories like Bronwyn's, like Raquel's, even going back to previous season, which I'm calling season 1 of New RHONY, Brenn's story. I think when and Sai, I think when emotional stories about your life are shared in an authentic way, I'm peeling back the onion, I'm letting you know a little bit more about who I am and who shaped the person I am today. It is like very, I don't want to say well received, but like as viewers, we appreciate that.
Oh,
We
yeah.
understand there's some vulnerability there, but also we can sniff it out. Like I look at, like, think about some of the people, I mean, not to throw under the bus, but Jessel, the way she shared some of her stories, we're like, well, girl, your
What the
struggle
fuck?
sounds a little different than everyone else's, you know? So I really, though, I loved Raquel's story, and I think I didn't love her story. I loved her sharing her story. I loved
Yes,
her opening
I
up to us.
follow.
Yeah. But I also, Brynn said it really nicely, like perfectly too, and kind of I think made Raquel feel like she wasn't as alone in this. But like there are just certain wounds, scars, whatever you want to say, and like internally that like time just doesn't heal. And I thought like Brynn said it really sweetly when she said there's just certain voids that will never be filled. And like, cause you could just see, I mean, Raquel was I don't know how old she is
She
now.
said she was like 12, but she's
She was 12
obviously
when
an
it
adult.
happened. I don't know. She's like, so 40 years later, I'm just gonna say she's 52. I hope I don't overage her. Um, but 40 years later, it's like you said, it's still so fresh. And I think there's just certain things that just like time will not heal. You're always going to have that pain and that hurt there. And I don't know, as a parent too, it's like I couldn't imagine just abandoning a child like that and then going on your life, like with the rest of your life, knowing you have a kid out there you don't know, you've done nothing to be part of their lives. Like it's just, it's, I don't know, it's just really sad.
Very, very sad. But look at, like they said, look at what you've made yourself. This is like a middle finger to your dad. Like
Yeah. It
you could
also
have
kind of broke my heart too when she told her mom, like, I want to change my last name and I want it to be your maiden name. And her mom's like, well, my dad was an asshole. Like, please don't pick his name. And then they like went down like the family tree until they found a last name that they felt like really was something they could be proud of. I don't know, just that made me sad too to think like, oh, her mom has been down, down that path. And in some ways, maybe it helped them form a tighter bond, and her
yeah,
mom can
and
maybe
hopefully
understand.
heal some
Yeah.
of that generational trauma. I think too, I can't speak for the entire Latin community, but I feel like within our community, this is something that does happen. And I've seen it from examples through my own life. So I just think it's really wonderful of her kind of taking control of her own story and saying, you know what, and with her mom being a participant of that, let's take this last name and start
Yeah.
again, start
Yeah.
new. I don't need to marry a man to get a new last name. I can change my last name. I just think there's something very empowering about that.
Yeah, I do too, and then it's kind of, it's like a new beginning, a new start for the both her and her mom from that, like,
Yes.
that day forward. Um, I did not think of this, but you made a connection with what Jenna was making for the group.
Yeah. So anytime we say Pavlova, if you have a cocktail in hand, have a sip. That'll be the drinking word of this episode is Pavlova. Aaron picked up on it too, but I immediately thought of Bluey. It's their beloved Aussie dessert dish, and there is an episode called Pavlova, and like that's where my mind went to. I would have never heard of this meringue, Australian meringue, if it weren't for Bluey. So thank you,
Well, the
Bingo and
more
Bluey.
the
Shout
more you
out.
know. Yeah. Okay, so been saying, like, I think this is gonna be a little bit of the downfall of Brynn this season. We're not gonna necessarily be, it's gonna be harder to be in her corner and, like, be, a big fan of hers, but I I don't agree with her behavior, but I did really feel bad for her. It's like the women were essentially, at tennis, half of them ignoring her. I think just anytime in a group when you feel really isolated and left out, especially in a setting where it's a girls' trip and there really is no escape, like you can't just go to your own house and cuddle your dog or be around like your own familiarity, your comfort areas. I really did feel for her in that moment when she was crying to Aaron and said, I just wanna go home. I don't know, that's hard, and I think Jenna picked up on some of that feeling too.
Yeah, Jenna definitely, she's kind of a Brynn whisperer. I feel like she really gets the way to approach any of her sadness, the way to like cheer her up. I did also think at the same token, and everyone processes those situations differently, but also like why not say something to Uba or Sai in the moment? Like, hey, the
I'm
vibes
here.
here are weird. I'm right
Yeah,
here. I thought we were cool. Like, what's up? I mean, I think we eventually get a bit of that, but a part of me wonders if that would have saved some of the heartache towards the end of this episode had she like addressed it initially. I think a lot of my issues with Brynn so far this season, and I say this as someone who did like fall in love with her season one, is like, okay, we get it. You're like funny and like everything's sexual. And there's like a
Yeah.
TikTok out there. You guys have to find it where this girl impersonates her at
It's, like,
ordering
spot on.
McDonald's.
Yeah.
It's so good. But like where you're like, okay, like so flirty. Where I'm like, okay, Brynn, like you're aware of the cameras. Like, I just need you to just be you. Like
Be real. Like, don't
be
be
real,
yeah.
be a little bit more vulnerable in that sense if you get like I'm kind of going on a little Brynn tangent here, but I can like sense a lack of authenticity with her a bit.
It's, like she's playing a character of herself and,
Yeah.
like, yeah, like, show the real emotions. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to get angry. I think also I think she has a hard time when people express big emotions. It's like because
Mhm.
she can't, and so it is almost like triggering for her, and we'll get into that with her and Uba later, but I did appreciate how, Jenna's trying to cheer her up a little bit, and, I didn't love that she's like, "Here, have, like, 1 sip of wine," but no, it has to be more than a sip. I'm like, "Why does it have to be alcohol that you're gonna, like" I
Yeah.
don't know, it's like, "Just let Jenna not drink, and let's think of something else," but Jenna's like, "I will let you wear all my diamonds." Perfect. Perfect way of
Diamonds
approaching
are a
it.
girl's best
Yeah,
friend. I mean, she had a beautiful necklace that she put on her, and immediately Bryn's like
like,
energy
smile, yeah.
shifted and changed. And Jenna, in true Jenna line fashion, was like, most people have different coping mechanisms, ice cream, healthy or not. And she's like, I've got diamonds. That's what I can give you and distract you and make you happy.
I mean, if I had that many diamonds on, even though I'm borrowing them, they're not even mine, I'm just wearing them in the moment, of course you're gonna feel better. Like, you're like, "I'm right now worth, like, $1,000,000 just walking around." That's
Yeah.
gotta feel like a little sense of confidence and empowering. So, I mean, if I had a friend like Jenna with all of that jewelry, I think if I was, like, sad and having a bad day, I'd be like, "Can I just come sit in your closet and put on all your jewelry?"
Yes.
Um,
I would
yeah.
want like her accessories, like depending on her shoe size, I'd be like, I'd want your shoes, like
I
wearing a
actually
set of
I
your shoes.
really like Jenna's style. I think sometimes she doesn't wear the right like, I didn't love her reunion outfit. It wasn't even so much the jeans, it was just they were all so disjointed. But I really like she has a very much like a relaxed, like, casual, cool style that, I feel like sometimes you see people wear stuff on Housewives and you're like, "If I wore that, I'd look ridiculous." Like, if we all start wearing black turtlenecks underneath our, like, blue button-down shirts tucked in but somewhat open, like, we're gonna look like
What?
weird.
Like, where are you
Like,
going?
yeah, like Brynn
Next.
pulled it off, but not all of us can do that. But, like, we can all wear a white button down with jeans. I even think that latex outfit, I bet majority of the people could with a little bit of shout out nude, some little tape to make sure it doesn't, reveal too much. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
could pull that off.
I really actually like that latex outfit. I think I'm honestly
Mm.
given her insecurities regarding her skin
Mhm.
condition. I was like proud of her for like she's been
Yeah.
revealing a bit more, but I digress. Let's talk about Shabbat.
Well, let's also talk about, the
Getting
whole
ready for Shabbat.
embryos on ice thing.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, I do feel like, and we've said this before on the show, when one partner wants another kid and one doesn't, I feel like that's gotta be the hardest challenge, like, obstacle to overcome because there is no compromise. Like, if one person wants to live in the city and one person wants to live in the burbs, it's like, well, what if we found a townhome in the city that's right by a park? Like there are different ways you can compromise. Or we'll live in the city till it's time for the kids to go to school and then we'll go to the burb. Like, but there's no like, we'll semi have a child and then we won't. Like, it's either you're going to have another kid or you're not. And this, I mean, I know this has been a bit of Jessel's storyline, but I think it's something that is really bothering her. It's something her and Pavid are talking about a lot. I couldn't imagine paying $1,100 a month. Like, at some point, it's like, you need to be thinking about, like, if we're gonna be spending that much money, like, what do we wanna do with it?
I
I
do
was a
think there's such an emotional journey with IVF that I feel like from people I know who still have embryos on ice, even though they're done. I think there's some sense of like abandonment or like it's such an emotional thing.
well, it's weird because your options are to dispose of the embryos, and depending on your beliefs, religious or not, just how you some people are
Yeah.
like, "No, but those are, like, my future children I'm disposing of." So it feels weird to just, like, let that be the end of it. And then there's also, you can donate embryos and then somebody else could who, for whatever fertility challenges they had would carry your embryo as and then it'd be their child. But then like would be the the person carrying it. It's like they're essentially adopting the embryo and saying they're adopting the
Yes.
child, but they'll get to carry the baby.
Yes.
I,
I know someone
I'm sure
who's
that's
done that.
yes, I know you know someone, and I imagine to be the person that's like putting those embryos up for adoption, it would feel very weird to know that like there is truly one of my like I have a child out there. Like it's in, but also you can look at it as like you're giving someone the gift of a child that can never have it. There's so many ways
Yeah.
to spin it.
It would
But
take a lot of, like, mental gymnastics
yeah.
in your, like, mind state. I mean, it's like men who are sperm donors who don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, there's
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get into that Netflix documentary, but
Oh yeah.
yes, that is another
I
thing
just
that we kinda think about, but
I feel like it'd
anyhow,
just be
but
really hard. So, but Jessel was talking about it. I did appreciate Sai being like, for 250,000, I will carry that. But I mean, that is a lot of money. I'd be pregnant again for 250,000.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't also get
Well,
probably
you almost
approved.
died. So I feel
Yeah,
like
I
it's a
know
little,
I
yeah.
wouldn't get approved even if I, like,
Yeah.
wanted to. I think they would kinda nix me. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know what it's in New York. We're not well versed in the surrogacy
No.
world. So if you guys have any intel, I'm honestly just curious. I mean, we're all little nosy
I
beings
think
in
it can
just terms of
it
it's
can
like
it can range from like a slight payment for like any recovery time off work situation, as well as covering all of your medical costs and then the costs associated, like, any obviously like your surrogate's not paying for like the embryo transfer or any of
yeah,
that. But it also can then be just like flat out paying for it. But I think it depends on the state and like legally it's how you word it because it can get kind of, I think it can get kind of like shades of gray of like paying someone a
sure.
lot of
It's
money
like a
to
weird
be,
I mean, it's all very interesting when you all think about it, but
yeah.
let's talk
But anyway,
potatoes.
yeah, let's talk about that. But it was, I appreciated the conversation that like, I think her opening up about it, I'm sure there's a lot of people in that same spot who are like, it's nice when you don't feel alone. So I was, an interesting, and enlightening conversation to have. And then we get into peeling potatoes. Wait, you peel potatoes like Jessel?
Yeah,
You
I don't
peel
cook.
towards your body?
It's
But if
not
you, but if you've ever peeled a potato or a carrot, like how would you peel it?
I would have done it like Jessel because I
Okay.
literally don't cook. I know I've done it that way. And then when Sai showed the like back and forth, I was like, oh shit, of course. No, I don't cook. So of course I peel it like Jessel. I mean, amazed
Well, I
that
just think,
Jessel
like,
didn't.
naturally, you would wanna take the sharp
No,
object away
I
from
don't
your
know.
body.
I don't
I
know.
don't do the back and forth. I just go really fast, but I do it away from my
I
body.
I'm I get it. I get
Yeah.
Jessel. I guess when
Yeah.
you don't cook very often, you do weird things like that. So that's one of my weird quirks. I will admit that I peel a potato that way. Haven't peeled a potato in a minute.
Do you guys do mashed potatoes on Thanksgiving, or do you do a different, like, Dominican vibe on it?
We celebrate Thanksgiving with Kyle's family, so it's more American and traditional.
Yeah.
Kyle takes care of all of us.
Oh,
I
really?
just, yeah. He normally we will bring like on Thanksgiving, he'll do like a side. Typically his sister tends to host, so she'll provide like a lot. A lot of times we've been able to show up, but
Oh,
he's the king of mashed potatoes. He makes really
yeah.
great mashed potatoes. We have them on Christmas along with like Dominican food, pernil, arroz con pollo, like all sorts of different things. But yeah,
Um, yeah, my family, we always had mashed potatoes on Thanksgiving. And part of it was us kids always had to peel the potatoes. So anyway, so you said we started talking about Shabbat. You wouldn't want to go to a Shabbat. I've been to a few. They
no, I
are
want to go.
no, I said you want to go.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry.
I have been to a few. They are a lot of fun. Well, and I have to clarify, Shabbat can be two different things. There's Shabbat dinner, and then there's actual Shabbat, which true Shabbat is like going to dinner, is like going to church.
Okay.
So it'd be like like going to mass. But then there's also like the Shabbat dinner, and there's a lot of traditions. Right now, we are on the tail end of the high holiday season for the Jewish faith. My kids went, and now I have one that goes to a Jewish preschool. So we've been closed a lot this month. But yeah, there's a lot of really like fun traditions, and
Yeah.
Aaron was sharing with the group, and yeah,
I
I
just like, the excuse of gathering everyone together, and I don't know, I really enjoyed it.
I also think it's really I am a person who I love learning about other religions, other cultures, because like we all whether you like, most of us are maybe more of like a melting pot, but if you have a friend who's like their family's 100% Italian, they have some really cool traditions, really cool things to do. It's just really fun to learn about other people's cultures and religions. And I don't know. I feel like I'd like I would like love to like just like bop around and do like an around the world
Yes, you've
like
said this
month
before. I
long
feel like
trip.
we're gonna get like invited if we ever go on tour. We're gonna just
Yes,
say,
I know. Like
invite us to
I like
dinner.
I do feel like I would be an amazing Persian wife from what I've like researched, but and I think it'd be a really good mafia wife. I've talked about this a lot and people DM me.
You've talked about this on this
Yeah.
podcast. I mean, it continues to
Pe-
come up. I love this. Maybe you were in your past life or you will be in your next life.
Maybe. I don't know. But I agree with Aaron. I know you had this note too. I like am so confused how Rebecca Minkoff can be a Scientologist and Jewish. They're very different. Like the way they believe in the afterlife, the way they believe the world was created, the like who they think is God. Like it's a little it'd be like saying like I'm a devout Christian and a devout like Jew. Like that's not it
It
doesn't
doesn't work. It makes me wonder if she is Jewish by ethnicity,
spirituality.
like
Yeah.
how she was
I don't know, but
raised.
her
And then,
dad is the one though that was the big Scientology donor.
well, I have no idea. Or her mom
Yeah.
was. I don't know how she, I mean, who knows? And then
Yeah.
Scientology is the religious part, but I don't understand that either. It doesn't seem like it would make sense.
Yeah. I don't know. But curious to find out and learn more. Then we have I thought it was a great prank. In some ways, I'm like, did this work or did this backfire? So Erin decides to put because she's been hearing about the pavlova like nonstop. They're all kind of like, we get it. We're having pavlova. You're making pavlova. They decide they have these like fake bugs that they're going to put in it, and everyone knew right away that it was a fake bug, and they knew it was going to freak Uba out. But I think just the idea of a bug being in food grossed Uba out. She's throwing up. Sai goes to check on her. Sai is throwing up at the sight of Uba throwing up. It did crack me up, and I couldn't help but like the poetic justice of like Aaron being the one orchestrating this, and then everyone's throwing up in Aaron's sink.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was, I mean, and I like that Jenna immediately picked on that it's fake. She like
Yeah,
put it in her
like
mouth. It
yeah.
was too thin. I mean, it was definitely funny and
Jessel knew
amusing.
right away too. It was on her plate.
Yeah,
And she was like,
she
"Oh, there's
pretty much
legs."
is like,
Like,
yeah, but the way, I mean, it was pretty flat roach, but Uba, yeah. And then I giggled that Uba's like, if I do get pregnant, Sai, you're not coming
yeah,
over because you have like sympathy throw up, I suppose. If you see someone puking, you're going to immediately start puking. So I think I would only be like that if I were very hungover, nauseous.
yeah.
I wouldn't have been in that situation.
I'd have to be on the verge of fighting vomit, and then somebody else doing it, like, "Oh, I can't fight it anymore." I also think if you have young kids, like you kind of have to develop a little bit of like a thicker skin when it comes to that stuff because
They're
It
gross.
they're gross, and kids like, the worst thing is when kids start throwing up and they're at that age where they don't understand, like, the signals before they throw up. So you're sitting there and they throw up on you, or they throw up in their bed, or they come wake you up at, like, 3 a.m. They smell like vomit, they're soaking wet, the bed's wet. It's like there's nothing well, I don't wanna say nothing worse because there is, but, like, that's up there on the top.
It's
Yeah.
definitely up there.
I'm
And
gonna
then
let
it gets
you as
good.
there's certain topics I feel like I mean, I know, like, even as a white person saying angry Black woman, but, I'll let you as an
Yeah.
Afro
So
Latina discuss
listen,
this a little more.
okay. So it rubbed me the wrong way in a lot of ways. I think one, you guys listening, we all know that angry Black woman trope. It's a thing, it's unfortunately a stereotype that exists when any impassioned Black woman starts to either slightly raise their voice or just defend themselves. I did not think it was right in Brynn's instance. So, yes, Brynn is biracial. I am as well. However, in terms of like, there's so many complexities of being biracial. But as Brynn shared, she, in order to get tied to more connected to her Black culture, she would go to like the Black hair salon. And it doesn't mean that Brynn isn't like Black enough by any
Right.
means. However, I do feel like in that conversation and her saying that, to me, that felt like I didn't feel like it was appropriate. I didn't think she was doing anything. I'm not wording this properly, but it just kind of gave me the ick. It's
Yeah.
just like, in terms of how she claims her Blackness, and that is her journey, not here to judge her on that. I mean, I think we all go, especially us mixed folks, we all go through a racial identity crisis and a racial, like, rediscovery
Right.
of yourself. However, I just thought her going, like, she's the last person who I feel like would be in the right with any of the other women in the house to tell this Black woman who is just very passionate and animated when she talks
Mhm.
to say, "Hey, looking out for
Yeah.
you. You're coming across as an angry Black woman." Like, it just,
Well,
no.
and then when Aaron was like, "Brynn, you can't like, don't say that. You can't say that." And she was like, "Oh, I can. I'm Black." And again, like I'm not Black at all, but I do think, I like remember the phrases of like, during like a lot of the George Floyd, there was a lot of conversation of like race and like how we identify and things to say, not to say. And I do remember there are a couple content creators that talked about like they have biracial kids who might be passing white or passing non-Black. So you wouldn't like see them on the
Yeah.
street and immediately know that's a Black person.
Yes.
Bryn would fall into that category. Uba does not. So I think there comes a moment where it's like, and also for Bryn, I think it'd be like, if you are identifying as part of this community, why would you perpetuate the stereotype? Don't say you're coming across as an angry Black woman. So you're really angry right now. Like, why did, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
like,
like,
even if
why
she
did,
said she was really angry, like, I just think there's so many different ways for
yeah,
her to go about it, and I do think Uba, by nature, is very animated in
yeah,
how she talks, like, we've seen it, she just gets very passionate, and to me, it's not even her being Black, I just think
correct.
culturally, it's just like her, like, think
It's her
of someone who's
personality.
Italian, and they
Yeah.
speak a lot with their hands, and, like, there's certain things, and I just, ooh, I'm just like, "Brynn, this is, like, your continuation of your downfall."
And I kind
A
of go
little
back
bit.
to Bryn has a hard time with people processing like emotions in general. And I think Uba is someone that feels big. She loves big. She's loyal. I mean, when she's laughing, she's got a big laugh. Like she's a very animated person. Like she's like, and she's has long arms and long limbs. So as she's like moving and doing stuff, you kind of notice it. Where like someone like a Jenna is a little bit more like reserved. And when you're talking, like if you've ever noticed in Jenna's interviews, like you rarely see her body move and stuff. She's just
Yeah.
very like it just seems a little bit more stoic and like reins it in a little bit. Aaron's another one who talks big. It's like, but and
Yeah.
I think, for Uba, that's just how she is. And I also think for Brynn, it's triggering for some reason for her to see people have big emotions. And I think that's why for her, her default is to like make it flirty, make it jokey,
Yeah.
let's never really talk about it. And someone like Uba, who she said she's not a brush it under the rug. Like she wants to like hash it out, talk about the feelings, resolve it, and move on. But there was just such a difference of the two of them. And it was I don't know, it was like, oh, like you said, Brent, it's like you're so close. And then it's like one step forward, three steps back.
I'm curious to see, like, how she's gonna address that given, like, the fan reaction, but also, like, I think too in any sort of conflict, clearly, I think Brian could have approached this one or 2 ways. I think if you just focus on your part of your hurt and say, "It hurts me when you say those names. It hurts me when it feels to me you're raising your voice saying those names." That's so different versus saying, "Hey, you're coming across as, like, the angry Black woman." But also, Uba, I do can see that she's clearly hurt by her leaking the stuff about Oliver. And it's like it's resurfacing and it's coming through the size stuff or whatever it may be. So I guess moral of the story is, ladies, if you're not over something, don't say that you are. And let's
Yeah.
like actually address it. I know it's hard. It would be hard to do that on reality TV. It would be hard for me too. Hence why I'm not on reality TV, but it just seems like it would save like a lot of heartache
Yeah.
if
Let's
there's
like
just a little bit
actually,
more straightforwardness, you know?
yeah, let's actually talk about it and work through it. I also think too, though, like you think, like thinking back to that scene, it's probably gonna be very uncomfortable for Bren, but I do think, we always talk about there's like opportunity for growth, opportunity for learning. This could be a really great chance for maybe Bren to say, like, I've done some self-reflection. I've talked to some people, I don't want to write her off just based off of this
No,
one scene.
absolutely. No.
But yeah, I think I can't wait to see what Andy like after because he always will kind of give a little teaser for the reunion and like will say like kind of the vibe. And, he did admit for the OC one, it was almost nice. Like it felt like maybe we did have some resolution. I feel like with RHONY, we could potentially have that because I do think Brynn and Uba are two people that actually do love one another, and I think they actually wanna be friends. I don't think they want to just even though they're very mad at each other right now, but I don't know, I could see it somehow working out.
I only don't because when the promos were going out, remember like the dress barn digs that Brynn made at Uba? And I would imagine as they continue to make Watch What Happens live appearances, that it's only gonna
We'll
the
see. They
next is
were
gonna take
both
a
at
bigger
the
role.
premiere together, and they're like it didn't
Oh yeah, you
seem
were there. Hello. Yeah.
yeah, so it wasn't like they weren't, like, avoiding. Again, that could have just been for the for the media, for
Showman.
those of us there. But, yeah, we'll see. I also feel like too, like, it'll depend on, like, sometimes we see these clips. It'll depend on, like, how the dress barn comment is received. Maybe they end up talking about it and for like, we think it's this big thing, and there's actually something else that, like, led to the big blow up. Because we still don't know why when they were getting ready to do their cast photo, like, what led to that huge fight that they, like, essentially didn't want to be together at all.
Yeah.
So we will see. But it was I loved the episode. We had all the things. We had fighting, we had conflict, we had laughter, we had tears, we had like good conversation and like sharing a little bit more about himself. So I'm enjoying the season thus far. Before we wrap though, we would be remiss not to acknowledge today the passing of the beloved Michael from Southern Charm. There's just been like an outpouring of love on mostly Instagram because we're all elder millennials and that's where we're getting our information. Patricia obviously had a really touching tribute. Whitney did, Cam, every account's posted about him. And I just hope for his family, I'm sure they're experiencing a lot of pain right now, but maybe seeing all that could help them feel like his legacy was bigger than just him. So, and you guys know the drill. If you haven't already done so, 5 stars, follow, subscribe to us, and leave us a written review if you got 30 seconds or less, and make it a great day or don't. The choice is yours.